Okay, so, as you said, we talked about Blue Team CTFs, but very quickly I'll do an introduction on myself in full geeky mode. So, as I said, I am Russ Taylor. Currently, I work for a company called Helical Levity. It's quite a small consultancy company, but we do work closely with SANS, who I hope a few of you are familiar with. We're currently working on a cyber discovery project, which is teaching 14 to 18-year-olds about cybersecurity skills. We have a US program which has just kicked off as well. And my job at the minute is to run a team who is developing content, building CTFs, building training platforms for people in that age group. Prior to that, I was at Leonardo, which is actually just across the road from here, as a SOC analyst. Before that, I was in NATO. Again, as a SOC analyst, you will notice a pattern. I was a security consultant for, again, another small consultancy company. I prefer the smaller companies, to be honest. Larger companies, I find you can become a bit of a grey person in the background. So I much do prefer going for the smaller companies. Was an incident response analyst, ironically, then moving to a big company. Before that, with Airbus Defence and Space. And before that, I was in the Royal Air Force. And obviously, like most people in this room, I was born a geek. You can save questions to the final slide. You can ask throughout, to be honest. With the format we have here, I'm quite happy to take questions at the moment. So we're going to discuss a few points. I'm going to apologise. I don't normally apologise for my own slides, but I'm going to. The transitions do go each point, which I know is not particularly popular these days, but I'll be honest, I don't really care. So we're going to talk about why the red team CTFs are typically more common, why blue is underloved, how to design a blue team CTF. We're going to look at some principles on that. I'm going to talk about how we can overcome some of the common issues that you get, examples of why you need a blue team CTF, and that was the last point, damn it. Right, so we'll go to the next one. So, red versus blue. In the past, we've seen a lot of red team CTFs, and they're really cool. They're good fun. But a lot of the time, they are very contrived, very much a case of go and find flag.txt. It's on the desktop of this machine, but you need to kind of go and find it yourself. We put some really odd and obscure blockers in your way, but just go and have fun. And the forensics side of things were really put in there more as a filler than an actual challenge. So certainly on some of the websites I've seen, you'll see forensics is a subheading somewhere, and then you go and download a file, and it might be an image, and you're looking for the least significant bit in steganography or something along those lines. And there are not very many dedicated blue team CTFs. So again, as I say, a lot of the forensic challenges, there's a lot of proof of concept challenges out there which have their uses and can be quite valuable, but at the same time don't represent the mainstream of what forensics and blue team do. Some of the network protocols that you have to reverse, I've seen, for example, ICS protocols in use, type of things that a very small minority of the industry will actually see and use, and people asking questions around that, so you have to go and research how these work. And again, it has its uses, but it doesn't represent the mainstream kind of stuff we want from blue teams. And why is this happening? Well, traditionally, blue team's a bit boring. Let's face it. If you stand up, doing blue team stuff is great. Presenting blue team stuff, not so much. You know, if you found a new artifact in the Windows registry, nobody cares. But if you found a new vulnerability in a new exploit, that sounds really cool, and people want to do that. So what we're trying to do is show that the blue team stuff can actually be interesting and can be fun. Some of the challenge we have is the file sizes can be quite large. So if you've got a Windows box that you're doing the forensics CTF on, the image itself for RAM, for example, may be 1 gigabyte if you're lucky to get it that small. And if you're getting a Windows disk image, you're talking maybe 5-6 gigabytes minimum. And that's assuming that you don't have a Windows update that's randomly going in the background, which happened to us, and pushed one of ours to 20 gig. And obviously trying to download these is not easy. So what should it look like? Well, it should be real well. This is what I've been harping on about in the first place. You should be trying to get things which represent issues that forensics people or blue team people have come across in the past. Now, the file sizes are becoming slightly less of an issue as time goes by. Obviously, our program deals with schools, so that's very much still an issue because schools still have terrible internet connections and still have about 40 firewalls with any rules set between the outside and the school itself. There is some things which we can do to help with this. So there's some developing software which I'll come into in a minute, which can help with this process. The other thing we need to bear in mind is that having a Linux box as a challenge is great because it's easy, it's free, you can set it up, and a lot of people are very comfortable with Linux. But the blue bars here are actually representing Windows as an operating system, as it's been seen from the source I grabbed this from, which I can't remember what it is. And at the top, they can see Mac there's a bit more Mac coming along, and Linux is actually the grey one at the top, which is a very thin line. So Linux is still a very small percentage in terms of user land and in terms of what a forensics person or blue team person will be doing in their day-to-day job, whereas Windows still takes up the lion's share of the work. It is still important to do Linux, don't get me wrong, but we need to be looking at what the Linux boxes are doing and how we represent that. Are they a web server? Are they an IoT device? What is it that box is doing? Is it maybe even boiled down into some sort of firewall device that you're looking at? Mac forensics are also not getting enough love right now. So if anybody is a bit of a Mac lover, Mac nerd, by all means, bring out some CTFs around Macs. So if you're going to build a CTF, planning. You have to plan the damn thing. If you don't, you'll be very sorry very quickly. So I'll be talking about two ways of doing this. Home and business are the two main avenues we're going to go down with this. But you need to plan on both. It's important that you plan the challenges and then build the infrastructure to match what you want them to be. Don't build an infrastructure. So a bit of an anecdotal story. A former colleague of mine, he is building a CTF, and he said, "Oh, level 1's complete." I was like, "Sweet, I don't remember seeing any paperwork for level 2, 3, and 4, which is what this is going up to." No, you can't build level 2, 3, and 4 until level 1's built. No, that's the opposite of what you should be doing. You need to be planning level 1, 2, 3, and 4 and looking at how the various challenges interact with each other and how you progress through them before you start booting up Azure boxes or AWS boxes or even doing VMs. Try and write down more than you plan to build. This is important because what we found is we wrote down 10 steganography challenges, and it was like, we don't need 10 steganography. That'd be really boring if you put 10 steg challenges in there. So try and kind of over plan with the challenge that you need. Make sure you get plenty down on there. Make sure somebody else reads them and says, yes, that makes sense. Don't just kind of go, yeah, this is what I think sounds cool. Let's do a load of registry stuff, or let's do a load of memory stuff, because you might have your specialty area and completely neglect network, for example, or something, or logs. And again, plan all the levels and try and build your difficulty into this. This is going back to the story I just told you, where you need to make sure you have all your levels planned at the beginning. And as you're doing these, try and think in your head, how hard is this? What steps are involved? And it may be that the peer review will actually come back and say, no, I think what you did there is actually really easy, or that's really hard. So make sure that you kind of get your difficulty in there at the beginning. Now this one, again, is, if you can use the same source of data, it can be really good fun. Because you can build one box, you can do whatever you need to do to that box, and then start putting lots of questions in. That only leaves one file to download. It's much smaller in terms of physical downloads, and you can kind of build a story around that box. The only downside is if you're using flag as your flag, so for example, flag : word, then people can grep that, strings that, or do other things, or accidentally find flags before they're supposed to find them. So if you are going to do that, don't put flag level 1 question 2 is, because then people will just go through and grep it and then quite happily update all of the data. The other way of doing it is to use things like timestamps as a flag, file names, MD5 hashes, things that can't be easily searched for. So building a CTF at home, I built a couple for the cybersecurity challenge in the past. They've gone down in size these days, so there's not as much demand to do that type of thing. If you are doing it from home, I would recommend using a single image, because you don't have a team around you. You're doing everything yourself. It's just much easier to keep track of everything you're doing on a single image. Build a narrative into the CTF. So the ones I've done in the past have usually been insider threat type ones, because they're kind of fun. You can just make stuff up, be a little bit out there with a story, Scott Bedford, who was one of the guys who worked for the challenge. I always made him the bad guy because it was fun. And that just makes it a little bit more interesting. If people can relate to that, they know who the person is, and they're like, oh yeah, Scott is doing something else. Let's go find out what else he's done. Again, adding Easter eggs can be good, but make sure the Easter eggs are relevant, obviously. And this is another one where you can put people's names in there. So I might have an obscure email in there, which is between Scotty and one of the other people who work for the challenge, which is talking about nothing to do with this competition, but it's just fun to read. And it can be just kind of a little conversational thing. And it's these little extra pieces of information, little extra nuggets of information, because obviously using a sanitized image in what you're doing. So what you need to be doing is kind of, rather than trying to emulate user behavior in a normal way, is just contrived user behavior. So it is fake. You may be talking about something amusing, something topical, but don't use real companies or people, because with the exception of obviously the guy I used, he knew about it, and he didn't on the first one, he found out, but he did on the second. I just said don't use real companies because they get quite upset about those types of things. And it can be harder than it sounds. Yes. So a business CTF, you need to look at this as as what are the benefits to the company when you're doing this. You can do a CTF for recruitment. So this would be much more structured, much more formatted, and you say that if people score well in this area, then we can offer them a job in this. If they're particularly weak in this area, then we maybe don't offer them the job whatsoever. Brand awareness, events like B-Sides or InfoSec, something like that, you can put a CTF on where you know there'll be people there who'll be interested in doing the technical challenges. And then you're basically saying, this is our company, this is what we can do. Again, the Easter eggs will be dictated by business benefit. It depends whether or not your company will allow you to have a bit of fun with it. I would always push for a little bit of fun with these things because it can become quite dry if you don't. And treat it like a normal business project. So don't see this as just being the thing the tech team are doing. See this as being, we need to have a project manager on this, we need to have deadlines, we need to have all your deliverables, the usual things you'd expect from doing a business project. And as we said before, some of the emerging software that's coming out, which is on a slide in a moment, is VNC, RDP, SSH, protocols that work over the top of HTML5. So you can actually use your own infrastructure, whether that be cloud, whether that be local, through a VPN, for people to connect to in order to do these types of challenges. So if you are going to host this in something like AWS, these are some of the tools that you can use. Guacamole is quite a good one. That's been around for a little while now. I know a couple of companies are using that. No VNC. And people are, as you see at the bottom there, people are making their own forks of this on GitHub. And this bottom one, for example, is very easy to install. It's literally a Docker image. You just run it and you've got the machine ready to go. What you can then do is, with doing it this way, is you put all of your information either in the Docker image or onto the AWS or Azure machine. You'll have your image files on there, you'll have your tools installed on there, and you'll give it the amount of resource that you feel is necessary to run that CTF. Then what it'll mean is somebody could come along with a MacBook or a Windows box, even a Chromebook, load up a browser, browse to your CTF, and take part. So you're taking away the idea that somebody has to have a forensics laptop available to them with a lot of resources. You're hosting the resources for them, and you're allowing them to play these games regardless of where they are in the world, providing they can get to a browser and providing they can browse to your website. So examples and ideas for challenges. I do say try and use the latest version of operating systems, and the reason for this is it prompts other people to do more research into the latest operating systems. Windows 10 seems to be some sort of weird chameleon that changes on every update. You know, memory addresses change and random. Adam loves Windows 10. It keeps his blog going. So, recycle bin forensics does seem to be quite difficult for new people. I quite like this one. So on the challenge we created, we put a couple of files into the recycle bin. And just filled them full of junk text. The thing is, all the junk text is the exact same length, except for the flag. So I'm sure if you're thinking straight away in your head, well, you just strings grep type thing, you can probably filter that out pretty quickly. But so many people got really upset because we gave them the file name of the file that had been deleted. And obviously with the recycle bin, that doesn't work because it changes to $I and $R, and I forget which way around it is, but one holds the metadata, one holds the actual data. So that you can't find that file name. So you can't just simply look through the file system and go, I found the file. And people were putting lots of support tickets into us and going, that's not there, you've put the wrong thing in. Like, nope, it's working fine. You just need to get good, as they say. They wouldn't let me say get good. I wanted to. Volume shadow copy is another one. It's very good for finding old data. You delete something, you can go back to your volume shadow copy, and you can retrieve the data that had been deleted, even in a forensically secure way, from the more recent stuff. Registry memory, that is quite a fun one. Getting people to extract hives out of memory. You can run hash dumps against memory. I'm trying to remember the plugin and volatility. It's gone from my head. Anyway, you can pull clear text passwords from memory using a plugin which name I've just forgotten. Mimikatz, there we go. So Mimikatz plugin will let you pull clear text password for the Windows account from memory. You can also write some really simple Python scripts which will interrogate the registry hive from memory. Again, more files from memory. PST files is another one we did, where we said, a user sent an email and all we did was provide a memory image and say, what was the contact details of this user? What was written in the contact details of this user? PCAP challenges, because I love me some networking, I does. We had a whole host of difficulties from this, everything from simply learning to follow a stream in Wireshark, all the way through to kind of having a protocol-less file transfer, which is actually just Netcat. It says FTP on there, but we just cheated and used Netcat because stripping out the data channel just seemed like hard work. And what this does, it stops people just using the export file objects from Wireshark. So we kind of getting people to use either different tools or different techniques in order to do the same type of thing that they would do normally. And it teaches good tools because you're not always going to have Wireshark available to you. You may turn up and find that someone's just given you a Linux box with a headless Linux box where you've got command line, you've got TCP dump, off you go. I don't know how to do this because anyone got Wireshark. Protocol misuse is good fun. You can have many different challenges based on that. So another one we've done was to make, how do we do this? So the DNS resolve was capitalized using binary. So it was a name, but each capital letter represented a 0 or 1. And then you had to go through, extract them all, convert it, and figure out what the actual flag was from doing that. We've also done the IP address, which ended up being an ELF binary. You had to convert that back into, the ELF binary, really. Acting like an attacker is another good way of doing these types of things. So you get your box and you hack it. And then you kind of look at it afterwards and go, what have we got? This is a little bit more, it's a bit less planned than the previous version, but can be more fun in some ways because you can train your pen testers to have a bit of fun, but also to restrain themselves in what they do, to maybe use slightly older techniques or slightly older tools in order to be detected a little bit easier. Or maybe you want them to go full stealth and see if you can find it. Maybe that can be the challenge for not only for you, but for the people playing your CTF afterwards. Stealing data is another one. You can use USBs, emails, cloud ones can be interesting. If you think about, if you're looking at encrypted traffic, how do you know if somebody's dumped something onto Google Drive or into Dropbox? You can start looking at different ways of seeing if somebody even accessed these sites, and then look at host forensics, see if there's any way of getting through those. And as I said, compromising the machine, going through all your different stages as a pen tester, and then looking back at it and saying, what did the bad guy do on the box? Some of the pitfalls: make sure you use a VM. Do not do this on a live machine; you will regret it. Snapshot, and I'm just going to say that one more time. Snapshot often. This is something where if you don't snapshot, especially if taking memory images, if you don't take a snapshot before you install your tools to grab the memory, you're going to contaminate your own memory image, and you're going to have to either reboot it or you're going to have to revert it or do something else. But if you've got that snapshot where you're like, I've browsed to the website or I've opened the file, I've done what I need to do, take a snapshot, then I'll install my tools, take the memory image. Does it look good? Yeah, it looks good. Continue. So just make sure you've got that. Yeah, as I say, Windows has some interesting quirks. The Windows update, as I said at the beginning, changed one of our memory images from 6 gig to 20 gig. And our resolution to that was to wait. There was not much else we could do. We just kind of went, it's really big. Okay, leave the machine running, walk away, come back. Now it's really small. Magic. Sweet. And Windows just does weird things sometimes. Defender updates adding URL to memory images. That one's cropped up a couple of times. Got a research piece similar to that near the end, but just recently with a US program that was running, we gave them a memory image. The memory image was really quite simple. It wasn't a difficult task we asked them to do. And somebody ran it through autopsy, which seemed a little bit odd because that was nothing to do with the challenge at all. And also it's a memory image, so it's a bit weird. Autopsy, one of the things built into it is a basic regex search, which will look for URLs, email addresses, things like that. So they did a regex search, looked at the URLs, scrolled down through the 3,500 URLs, which was in this clean VM, I hasten to add. This VM had been booted up. We'd done the activities to create the artifact, took the image, shut it down. It'd been up for virtually no time at all. And they found references to porn sites on the memory image. And they said, oh my God, this is disgusting. You're showing this to children. No. That was Windows Defender. So what had happened is we picked up this signature pack from Windows Defender and it had got incorporated into the memory image. And we had the conversation internally, should we sanitize our memory images? We can't. We can. We can stick it in a hex editor and overwrite naughty words with good words. But we're not doing that because that's a lot of work. What we ended up saying was this is more of a PR issue. We need people to understand that their machines also has this same data on. This isn't something we've injected. We haven't gone to inappropriate sites and then kind of gone, maybe they'll see that. This is something that exists within Windows. We found with Office 365 that PST files didn't want to appear in memory. Not entirely sure what happened. This is Office 365 installed, by the way, not Office 365 in the browser. So one of our friends at Scale, she installed Office 365, messaged me on Slack saying, Russ, I can't find the PST file. I was like, what? What do you mean you can't find it? It's not in memory. He's like, it has to be. You just opened an email. So there's a bit of research we could have done behind that. Unfortunately, on that one, we're short on time. So we actually just uninstalled Office 365 and installed an older version. Worked perfectly. So why are these useful? So we've run a Blue Team CTF in the past. We gave it to the cyber discovery kids to look at. And they said, you've been looking at porn. There's one of them in the room. I won't point him out so you get embarrassed. But it wasn't him who said it. So they said, this is erotica.hu. Oh my God, you're looking at porn. So we kind of Googled it and was like, that's a bit weird. Don't know what that is. So we began a research project, which we called Holly Porn, because Holly was a girl who created the image. She was one who's been accused of looking at porn. So we said, yeah, Project Holly Porn. That'll do. So we looked at what IETLD is, which is what the artifact actually said. Google came up with best answer on Yahoo, which is IE8 creates an index.dat. That statement is factually accurate. Does not help. No idea what that means. This was found from a forensic site, and I'm not trying to diss a forensic site. I won't say which one it was, but the article was more just covering in summary. It was like a Wikipedia style summary of that. And it said it doesn't know what it's used for. So it's like, well, we're going to have to find out. Let's do a research project. So we span at the Windows 7 VM. As I said, it was clean. We'd only done what we needed to do to get the artifacts running. And we know she didn't browse porn because, well, we don't know. We just think. So erotica.hu has never had an IP address gone to the DNS tools that we use. So we looked at some of the historical DNS tools, couldn't find anything. What we did find is it was a TLD. So you can have something.erotica.hu if you want to buy that. Other entries in the same file, in the index.dat file, did appear to also be TLDs, but not country code TLDs, just sub-TLDs. So what is it? Well, you probably guessed by that, Internet Explorer top-level domains. And as we've already said, created a list of custom TLDs in there. And we found that these were also on the Mozilla website under public suffix. So you can see in here, what they're trying to avoid is the idea that you can set a cookie at a high level TLD and then cover any website within that TLD. So obviously for country code TLDs, it's quite easy because the operating system already knows what they are. It's written in the registry and that can be done. But for these TLDs, it was a little bit more difficult. So they put on the old versions of Internet Explorer. It's not on the new version of Edge, only the older Internet Explorer versions up to Internet Explorer 8, I believe. You had this file which defined what TLDs existed in the world. So we knew that this was there to stop the cookies. But it did allow us to find out something which, as far as we could tell, had not been researched before. So this was showing the Blue Team CTF helped us. I'm just going to leave that slide there for a second. Are they popular? Yes. There you go. But proof as to what I'm saying. So Cyber Discovery, again, as I said, this company is the project we run. This over here I really quite liked. So which would you prefer to do, Blue Team or Red Team? The first time we run this, and I don't unfortunately have the stats, that was nowhere near an almost 50-50 split. So by running these CTFs, we're allowing people to really appreciate what Blue Team, or in this case forensics, can do. So quickly in conclusion, writing fun CTFs does encourage more research. Simple as that. The harder CTFs will allow more tools to be developed, and this is important. Some of the forensic tools that we have now are great, but they could be better, and especially for more modern operating systems, people writing these tools rely on other people to do research as well as the own research that they do to confirm what they're seeing is true. You can build good games from home, absolutely you can, and amazing games from business. There is a huge appetite out there for this. When we ran this, the Cyber Discovery kids do have a Discord server, a community Discord server. It's not one we run. And the reactions in there were, 1, hilarious, and 2, amazing. So some people were just kind of like, fuck forensics, I don't want to do that, it's hard. Why am I downloading 1 gig just to find out what operating system has been run? And I actually went in there and just kept writing welcome to forensics every time somebody moaned about a file size. But on the flip side, there was a load of people going, this is amazing, I'm really enjoying this. And we got a lot of people going through. In fact, let me go back one. So on here we can see this Detective Constable badge at the bottom is awarded to anyone who completes all of level 1. Now, our levels, you only have to complete 2 questions to progress to the next level, and there's 5 questions per level. So we know at a minimum 4,500 people completed 5 questions at level 1. Unfortunately, I don't have the stats for every level, but I'm happy at least that 4,500 people played the first level. Any questions? Got a couple. Use first.
Have you tried any phones?
No. So one of our guys is doing mobile phone research at the minute. We bought him a nice iPhone and a MacBook and a couple of Androids. We are looking at incorporating them, but right now we don't have mobile phones in our forensics. I do want to get them in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking making a Windows CTF. I was a bit worried about copyright and Microsoft would bother being annoyed that, the disk is going to have the copyright files on. Do you do anything there, like blacking files out, or?
No, with this one, we haven't got any trouble, so I'm working on it. It's okay. It's an interesting thought. I'd probably have to read through the EULA page for page, but we have a legal team and they didn't have any issues with creating this. Cool. So I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's one important thing to say, but yeah. Adam.
Train leaves from London.
Shut up. Any more serious questions?
It's a serious question. And on that train is a man called John who loves blue CTFs. Are there any publicly available ones you can recommend?
I hate you. At the minute, no, this is kind of the point of the presentation, is that there's not enough really good Blue Team CTFs out there. There are more popping up, and I would encourage you to look on the traditional Red Team CTF websites. Will quite often have them listed as weirdo CTFs or something like that. They have a category for Blue Team. But in terms of dedicated blue CTFs, not really. Hack the Box, Ring Zero Team. I think Ring Zero Team's a little bit old now, but Hack the Box do quite often refresh their content, so it's worth checking in there. I think CTFD is it CTFD.io? They've got a list of CTFs that you can kind of run from there, but they are primarily focused Red Team, so you have to kind of really dig through, find out what's on the blue side. And did I see another hand up? That was one more. Any more questions then?
I was going to say, actually,
I've done something similar to this, but I couldn't remember the website. When this stuff got off in a host of images and we do tiny little forensic challenges.
Yeah.
Would you say that's blue teaming-ish?
Yes, I mean, doing forensics is definitely on your blue side, but obviously blue team can also encompass things like SOC, log analysis, things like that. So the blue team banner is much bigger than just the forensic side, but yeah, it does include it. I mean, there's also the network one, which I forgot the name of, malwarepacketanalysis.net. So you can download a lot of PCAPs from there, run them through things like Zeek and other tools to try and get to what they're getting their flags from there. Yes.
The DFRWS changes each year. Not good for that side of things.
DFIRWS? Yep, is that the right one?
DFRWS?
DFRWS.
Yeah, DFR.
One of those. So feel free to have a look, see if you can find, do a bit of research, tweet about it, let me know. Right, thank you very much.